All right. Well, every leader that I work with, whether they're scaling a company or moving toward their next executive role, there's something that they all have in common. Eventually, it hits the same moment. They look at the calendar, they look at their workload, their inbox. Michelle and I are not fans of our inbox, their team, and say, how did my life get this complicated? They're not lazy. They're not disorganized. Actually, the opposite. They're not unskilled. In fact, it's usually the absolute opposite of all of those things. The leaders who create the highest complexity are the ones who carry the heaviest responsibility. Have a high tolerance for stress. Hello, coffee, grit, and hustle, girls. And have developed brilliant coping mechanisms that once served them, but are now silently driving them toward burnout. So here's the part most people never, ever see. Complexity is not created by your workload, right? Mind-blowing, because we always think it's all the things we're doing that's creating the problem. It's created by your stress pattern, how you respond to stress. And I'll tell you a little bit more in a sec on that, because every leader has a specific stress pattern that sets the tone for their entire operating system. Right? Oh my goodness. That's kind of mind-blowing. So today we're bringing your stress profile. We talked about that last week, and I'm going to give you a highlight in a sec. And your complexity level, we're bringing those together today so you can see exactly how the internal and external pieces fit together. So let's take a look and just do a quick review of those stress profiles on that internal operating system. So think of your stress profile as your internal GPS. It determines how you stabilize under pressure, what you reach for when things feel uncertain, how you protect yourself, how you push yourself, and how you unintentionally override your own well-being. So here's the snapshot version for today. Calm navigator. So if your stress profile is the calm navigator, you stay steady for everyone else. You are the person that is the go-to in emergency situations. As your system, however, quietly holds it all underneath. Our balanced achiever stress profile. You do a lot well, orchestrating all the moving parts. And you normalize pressure until it becomes the air you breathe. Our resilient warrior. You push through anything, sometimes at the cost of your own reserves. Our empowered explorer. You seek possibilities, sometimes too many at once, creating overstimulation. All the tabs open, all the things. Each profile is a form of brilliance, however, and each one comes with blind spots that drive complexity when stress pulls you out of alignment. Oh, do we have a question in the chat, Michelle?
No, I was just going to see how do people know what their profile is?
Okay, so that comes in our LPI. So if they want to watch the replay from last week and they can help sort of identify where they are, that's on our
Perfect.
LPI landing page. And they can go
Perfect.
watch that from last week. And the way that they're going to get that is when they get that stress profile, because we also have something coming up that we're going to share where they can get a mini glimpse of that and just move into their stress profile if they want.
Awesome. Thank you, lady.
Okay, so let's take a look at the truth most people never learn. When your stress pattern is activated, right? When your nervous system, when all the things are on high alert, you have stress coming in, your brain and your body attempt to regain a sense of safety, tries to gain control. It wants that certainty, right? That predictability, wants to know, hey, I belong. I'm not being cast out or othered. And they want to, this is the big one, we want to know which direction we're going in. All of that is how our brain and body attempt to regain a sense of all of those things when our stress pattern is activated. But instead of solving the stress, you create complexity to manage it. We all do. So Leidy Klotz is an engineer and a researcher, and he researched how we solve problems and discovered that the majority of people, when given a problem to solve, add to the situation in order to find a resolution. We as humans naturally move towards addition, thereby creating more complexity. Leidy calls this our subtraction bias. So here's how it can show up. Different profiles create complexity in different ways. So let's take a look at these and how each one actually moves into that stress pattern and complexity response. So with the calm navigator likes to create hidden pressure under the surface. That's how it shows up. The balanced achiever, they create overcommitment. Our resilient warriors create over-responsibility. And our empowered explorers, they create overstimulation and scattered pathways. Is any of this sort of speaking to you? Is there a particular one that's sort of calling you at the moment? Drop it in the chat, let us know. Because this is not a flaw. It's simply a predictable pattern. It's a way that we can start looking at our patterns in order to make conscious decisions and changes. So let's do a little overview of complexity here. We have 4 different types: chaos, less is more, time to get skilled assistance, and simplified structure. And all of these are the results in our assessment that tells you the level of complexity. So you have a stress style, and maybe you're the resilient warrior, but it's how complex as a resilient warrior are your system, structures, thinking, and nervous system right now. And so this just tells you what the level is of complexity. So let's dive into each one of these and break it down so you have a better understanding. So of the complexity level, chaos is keeping you stuck. This is where your system is running hot because your nervous system is overloaded. How much you can hold in your brain at once, right? That's our cognitive loadability. It is greatly reduced. And your ability to see clear, ordered steps from point A to point Z is fractured. That's your executive function. This often comes from a stress pattern that seeks direction, but ends up creating motion without alignment and clear direction. So this is like adding the to-dos, right? Picking things up and putting them on your list because you think it's going to solve the problem. So let's look at less is more. With less is more, you've built structure, but you're carrying way too much of the load. Quite often things that don't really belong to you. And this comes from the stress pattern that wants to meet expectations, hello my people pleasers, and hold everything together. That's that my grit and hustle girls. Whether you identify that as people pleasing or perfectionism, this is where it really shows up, right here. So let's take a look at time to get skilled assistance. So in this particular complexity level, you've reached the ceiling of what you can sustainably do alone, right? You can do just so much as one human. Your stress pattern equates independence with safety. This is definitely mine, I will just admit. I am one of those, I want to be independent, let me do my thing. I don't want to have to rely on anyone else. And so over time, I was taking on so much and not asking for help and not delegating as a leader very well. So complexity builds through over-functioning in this particular level. So let's look at the last one, simplified structure. This is where we're aiming to go. In simplified structure, you're in alignment and you're ready to grow. But expansion must happen without re-inviting old stress patterns. We are creatures of habit. We just do this, and it's automated. It's subconscious. So really disrupting and maintaining this there's some keys to it. So this is where the link becomes very clear. Your stress profile is the internal pattern. Whether you're an empowered explorer, a resilient warrior, a calm navigator, right? That's your internal pattern. That's how internally your system is responding to the external stress pressure from outside. Your complexity profile is the external evidence of how you're responding to stress in either a way that's benefiting you or a way that's not actually aligned for you. So we see that internal and external piece. Stress is the internal, complexity is the external evidence. So let's look at how these components come together in our R structure. So the bridge between stress and complexity, this is it right here. You have two landscapes that determine your leadership capacity. They're your internal R's and your external R's. So here is the slide, and these are our internal R's, your inner ecosystem. These regulate your stress patterns. Restore is your nervous system's baseline. Reclaim is your identity and purpose as a leader. Renew is your performance patterns and your leadership archetype. And recalibration, that's your strategic ascension into the next level of leadership, because we do not outperform our identity. So if we are in a senior VP role and we want to move up, we have to be of the identity of the next level up. And for most of us, we're still in the identity that we're in the current moment. And we can't expand that and advance into the next level if we don't have the internal resources and capacity to even begin aligning with a new identity. So when stress is misaligned, one or more of the internal R's is offline. And remember, this is an ecosystem. Everything works together. When stress is aligned, all four activate your optimum steady state. So now let's take a look at those external pieces of our R's. This is your leadership environment. These reflect your complexity pattern. So in risk, a good question to ask is, do your decisions create stability or volatility? In the reward external, do your efforts translate into results and advancement? And in our resources, are you using or draining your time, capacity, and energy? And in recognition, are your strengths visible at the altitude you want to operate? Because when complexity is high and your external R's are distorted, when simplicity is crafted with intention, your external R's, they amplify your success. So this is why stress and complexity, they can't be separated. They're two components of your software ecosystem. So let's talk about the optimum steady state. I've mentioned that. So when your internal R's stabilize and your external R's align, you step into your optimum steady state. So that's the place where you think clearly. You make decisions strategically. You operate with presence. Your energy is renewable. Complexity decreases. Your opportunities, they expand. And performance becomes sustainable. Not the sort of escalate and retreat that so many of us kind of have fallen into that cycle. I know I did in the past. This is the state where you advance your corporate career or scale your company without burning out your brilliance. Because you are brilliant. You have something tremendous that you're creating or contributing to the world. And not just for right now. What you're doing has a ripple effect on the next 7+ generations. That's what we call legacy leadership. If complexity is a symptom of stress, right? So we said stress is internal, complexity is the external. It's the result of how we're navigating stress. And stress is a signal from your internal operating ecosystem. Then this is the real question. Which are internal or external is asking for recalibration right now? Because once you see which part of the system is out of alignment, is it renew, restore? Your next level in leadership stops being a mystery and becomes a clear strategic pathway forward. Michelle, I want to turn it over to you to tie this all together with our human design, but I want to check in with everybody first. Which particular stress pattern resonated most with you? And where did you start to see complexity creeping in? Or maybe it's showing up in full force in your external environment? Which one of those really resonated most with you?
I also think too, like some of this, Carole Jean, from my experience in working with you, is like it takes like a hot minute to like absorb and be like, huh, I hadn't really thought about it like this before. So I love the complexity and the simplicity of the way you teach it as well. And it's interesting as Carole Jean and I learn from each other, and I'm popping in right now for the some of the external R's that thanks, Michelle. Um, is human design for me is a way of being like, I don't know where to start on some of this stuff. And then as you look at your human design, you can kind of plug in and say, oh, that's very specific to me and my fear and my belonging and my direction. So tying this all together today is, showing the human design piece. Now, for those of you, I think I know most of you know human design. For those of you that are new, human design is the science of differentiation. I put the link where you can get your chart. That's what you're seeing on the right side of my screen. And it is a mix of Kabbalah tree of life, the chakra system, my gosh, I kind of memorize these better. The I Ching hexagrams, the in quantum physics. So it's a lot of different things and astrology, all kind of put into one. So when Carole Jean's talking about complexity, I really boiled it down to, do you feel safe? Do you belong? And where is direction? And you're like, yeah, but like, how can a chart tell me that? And surprisingly, it is when you like really know where to look, which is what I want to show you today. It all is right in your chart. And I think that's what I'm so excited to share with you is you don't have to look at everything about your whole life, your whole path, everything at once. You pick and choose where you're feeling out of alignment. So these are the sections. I have one kind of little glimpse into each of them so that you can pull your chart, go back to these slides and take a peek and be like, oh, that's what mine is, right? So the spleen center right here, this kind of like golden yellow, is all about safety, timing, risk assessment. It's like your body's job to like keep you alive, right? Is when a baby is born, their spleen center is like one of the most active because all they care about is eat, sleep, and poop, right? And that is what's activated. So then as you get, advance in your, in your life and get older, that's when a lot of these other things kind of come into play in your personality and even in your unconscious sides. The ego, the heart, is all about control, willpower, self-worth, proving yourself. Whether it's defined or undefined, there's these different nuances. So just kind of laying the groundwork here. The ajna, don't love these words always, but that's okay. It's kind of like right here in your kind of like your eyeball section. Some people call it kind of your third eye, is about certainty, mental framework, and kind of needing to always have the right answer. The self identity, belonging, direction, and purpose. So when you're really talking about how do I belong, how do I know what's meant for me, there's a lot of wisdom in that center for you. And then lastly, when we talk about complexity, this one really resonates with me. Your head center is at the very top, is all about mental pressure, questions, doubt. Oh my gosh, I need to know all the answers. And that can put us into a spiral. So that's what we're going to talk about in the next few minutes. And so when these centers are misaligned, even very simple tasks can feel overwhelming. When your head's going and you don't feel safe and your identity doesn't feel like you belong, all that stuff. Like you can see these are like all around your body chart. They all kind of start to create this anxiety, this pressure, this lack of confidence. And so when we understand kind of each of the centers, their complexity, all of a sudden you can be like, oh, my head's kicking in, my open head. That just means I want to know all the answers. I want to know the unknowable. So I am just gonna like tune that one back, right? I'm just gonna put the mute button on my head center. So when you can recognize these things, when you can recognize that your spleen is like, oh my gosh, I don't feel safe. Like, what if this happens? What if that happens? You're like, oh no, I'm gonna unsubscribe. My spleen's just trying to keep me alive. Thank you, spleen. That's so nice of you. Okay. So when we go into each of these, and again, I'll give, oh, I forgot the slides to this. I will put this in the additional links. I always forget one, Carole Jean. Details are not always my thing. But when you are in your spleen center about the safety and complexity, it's all about saying, like, I will feel safe once I kind of understand everything. But when you have a lot of plate spinning or things coming at you, all of a sudden your body just doesn't feel safe to respond. You're kind of scanning for risks. It's kind of that like animal instinct that kicks in. And so when somebody triggers you and all of a sudden you are not feeling safe, whether it's mentally, physically, whatever it is, you will start acting kind of in that like not self. So it's good to know on your spleen center when you're looking at your chart, if it's defined or undefined, you have a high and a low expression of both. That's what this chart is. And I'll let you look at your chart and plug that in later. But it's really about how do I feel safe, right? So, like for me, I have a defined spleen. So I have very strong intuition. I can make quick decisions when I'm in alignment, right? If I'm like in that spiral zone, in that too much complexity, too many plates spinning, I can over rationalize. I can kind of ignore my intuition and start catastrophizing things, right? So when that starts kicking in, that's when you kind of know, all right, something's off whack. How you kind of know you're off whack is when your heart or your ego center is all about kind of like that complexity of timing, kind of having that control, what motivates you, knowing kind of when to jump in. And that's all about kind of that willpower and kind of like self-control, I'll say. So whether you have an undefined or a defined, sometimes you can start feeling, somebody triggers you because you don't feel valued all of a sudden. You don't feel like you are committed or that you have like the self willpower to do something. And all of a sudden, that kind of gets you into that spiral as well. So, knowing that if you must kind of prove your self worthiness at all times, that's going to feel very heavy. It's going to add to your stress. And as you know these things about yourself, you can be like, oh, I'm just feeling like I'm trying to prove myself. That's why I'm over speaking, right? And so there's different ways that when you plug in this ego heart center, most people, just a heads up, about 75% of the world have an undefined ego. So when that kicks in, that undefined, you can have a deep wisdom of when to say yes or no. But man, you can start people pleasing because you just want to prove that you're worthy. You just want to prove that you know what you're talking about. That can kick in really, really quickly, right? Okay, looking at time, we're good. Okay. So then on the ajna, kind of that like big brain kind of thinking, that is about I need to be certain. I need to know all the things, right? And it's a beautiful gift if you can tap into it and know how to kind of know big brain kind of thinking. But if you're processing information, analyzing, looking at frameworks, you could start to kind of feel uncertain if there's too much, right? If you're feeling unsafe, too much information, you're in a boardroom, you're triggered, all of a sudden all this stuff starts coming in and you can start to feel self-doubt, right? So misalignment is where you can have that mental capacity of like, oh my gosh, analysis paralysis. I think I know, but is it really knowable? And do I have enough information to know? And that's kind of when that complexity starts coming in your brain because your brain just starts thinking of multiple scenarios, right? And again, the ajna in most people is also undefined. So you can see why the head up doesn't actually do us much good. All it does is create, I don't know this. You know how that saying we get in our head? Look at that. From the throat up, the head and the ajna are undefined. No wonder we get in our heads. Things don't make sense. We start doing kind of over all of this over analysis and thinking, we start to self-doubt. And really, we need to just listen to like our body from the throat down. Okay. So these are the kind of things in the head and ajna that can really start making you feel unglued a bit. Right. And so the more you know about these, the more you can kind of tap back into it. Now, the self center is such a beautiful center because it's really all about belonging, direction, self love, purpose. It really is a center in you that you can look at your different gates and be like, oh, I do feel self-love when I'm doing something that lights me up inside, right? Or, oh, I do that, right? Because you can see all the little bubbles in there. Everybody has a little different way that they feel self-love or belonging, right? And so when you don't know where you are, where you're going, everything feels complicated, that's when you can kind of take a step back, look at your self-center and be like, okay, not self-centered, but your center, and say, where is this kicking in? Who am I? Where am I going? When do I feel myself? Because some of these misalignments are like seeking to belong through overperforming, right? Like because you're unsure, you're going to overperform the heck out of something just to prove your worthiness. Your ego kicks in, your self kicks in, your mind says you don't know what you're talking about. And all of a sudden, you can see how all these centers can really like feed into each other in either a beautiful, empowered way or in a pretty negative way. So you can kind of over identify where you're going to plug in if you don't know where your true alignment is in your center. So again, the charts at the bottom, when you look at your chart, you can be like, oh, here's what my defined or undefined is, right? So I have an undefined self. And so a lot of times I can find alignment through the amplification of being around the right people, people that inspire me, right? When I go to conferences, I feel a sense of direction because I can take in information and wisdom from others. But I can also kind of lose myself and direction feels unclear if I start getting exhausted and I'm overwhelmed. And now everybody, oh my God, there's 5 speakers at this conference and all of them said something that I think I should know. And now I don't know which one to do. I'm feeling lost again, right? So it's really knowing these pieces of yourself so that you can really grab onto the thing that's going to help you feel that kind of centered and that grounding. And then I should have put these two in order, but I didn't. That's okay. But we'll go back up to the head. I told you the head and the ajna really do us no good in our decision making because it's all about doubt and mental pressure, right? They're here to have a beautiful, complex human experience, but a lot of it is about that mental pressure center. It pushes down on us, right? And it can create confusion and inspiration. So which one? I would love inspiration, not confusion, right? But if you're in all these spirals, your head center is going to be like, you don't know what you're talking about, or I don't think you know that. Like that's something that sounds a little out there. I wouldn't put that out there. You might look stupid, right? That's your head center kicking in. And there's only 3 gates at the top here. You can see those 60 gates there. And they have a different way of making you doubt yourself, which is no fun. Who wants to doubt themselves? So, really, when you try to solve every question, you start to kind of spin and drown in your own complexity of like, okay, I'm trying to do too much. I'm trying to know the unknowable. And when you know that you have, let's say, an undefined head, and right, you can be curious. When you're in a high expression, you're like, oh, I'm curious. Tell me more. Instead of immediately being a troll and attacking or being like, I don't like that, like la la la, you can be like, oh, I'm curious to know why you think that, right? That's a very high expression way of controlling your head center and not letting you get, oh, I don't know, what's the fun saying, hot-headed, right? Like some of these sayings really do align with the centers that they're kind of driving to. Okay. So when we put this all together, I love how Carole Jean, we have like the inner R's and the outer R's. And a lot of this is your body telling you different ways of how you can recalibrate, reclaim your knowledge, and kind of take back, right? Some of this like control of your own body, right? You notice that only the head and ajna are in the recalibrate section. Again, these are kind of just visuals for you to look at. But the head and the ajna are all about recalibrating your mental, your pressure, your overwhelm, telling your brain, shh, it's okay. You're not, your spleen's kicking in, but you're okay. Don't overthink this. Don't feel the pressure, right? And when you need to kind of tap in and kind of in that renewal, your G center, yourself is going to kick in and be like, hey, you know this, you know your direction. Don't let everybody pressure from around you influence you. Come on, you know this, you know what makes you happy, right? And that's why a lot of this inner work and what Carole Jean talks about in stress and complexity and like masking, because it's like, you know this, you know when you don't feel aligned, but we don't trust it when we're trying to follow the system or blend in or fit in, right? That's that sense of belonging again. So again, like Carole Jean said, a lot of this is very nuanced and kind of all brought in together into this ecosystem. We never said this was easy, right? But when you have this self-awareness, you can really start to just pick one thing at a time, right? Do I recommend you look at all five of your centers in the same moment? Probably not. You might add to the complexity. But when Carole Jean says you're struggling with this, then I say, okay, great. Let's look at your ego center. What's going on there? Right? We like to like surgically get to that level. And that's the customization of like, okay, don't be overwhelmed. Just start here. Why are you feeling a loss of direction? Where can we help support that? Right. And then the other things can layer in after that. But you got to know where to start. And that's what Carole Jean's diagnostics do so brilliantly. As I saw it, I'm like, oh, yeah, there is my undefined self kicking in, right? I do have to focus on that. And then lastly, the reclaim is it kind of more the spleen and the ego, just reclaiming your self-worth, knowing that you're safe to be yourself, you're safe to be authentic, or know when to maybe not talk, right? That's another layer of safety is just knowing when to not let that head and that ajna kick in and make you try to prove yourself and let that ego heart try to prove your worthiness. You're safe, just maybe it gives you another lens of how to connect with others, right? Because you know those people that just can't stop talking. And you're like, are you trying to convince yourself or me? Because like I'm kind of over it. I'm not listening to what you're saying, right? Those are people that probably are in that spiral that self-worth is just not there, right? And so the next piece of it, you'll notice, oops, there's my slide. On this slide, there we go, is I'm not really talking about restore on this one because the restoration piece is really like there's a reason we kind of break this out in chunks for people is like the restore piece is really about sleep. And while we can't fit all of this, into a mini session, the next one about kind of restoring and how to connect some of this is how you use some of these 5 centers in your sleep patterns. So, Carole Jean, I'm going to pass it back to you to wrap up. And then we'll ask for Q&A if there's some questions at the end as well. I'll,
Perfect. Thanks, Michelle.
yeah,
So
for
I
sure.
want to mention why we're talking about sleep next week. In my research over 4 years into women's stress, burnout, and our well being in 30 different areas, the first place that gets disrupted when we get a little stressed out? Our sleep. And this is the really sad part, and I know you're going to hate to hear it. Oh, yes, magnesium makes such a huge difference. Total game changer, Tegan. I absolutely agree with you because that's one of the things that we're also going to talk about in our Leadership Performance Intensive is what are the ways that we can, on a biological level, start to support our systems in stress, right? Because we can't just do the work here or here. We have to do the work in our full body. From well-being, we look at the whole human. We look at your body, your mind, right? Your emotions. We look at all of these parts because you can't just do one thing. And sleep is the first thing disrupted. And here's the hard, bitter pill most people hate to swallow when I say it. It's the last thing to come back online as you restore, as you get into your optimum steady state. And I want to just share for a moment how all of this comes together. So for an example, if you're the calm navigator, that's your stress pattern. You are the person that holds it in, but you're expressing calm externally, like you're the go-to person because you're calm under pressure, but inside you might be going, oh my God. When that begins to build up and you're then doing things in your external life to try and navigate that internal imbalance, that misalignment of how that's showing up for you as a calm navigator, most often you might show up as less is more. And that's about meeting expectations, right? You've got the structure, but it's that internal piece that's driving this complexity because you're trying to meet everyone's expectations. And when we look at how do we get really surgically precise around where do we start with this, in our work, when we do the diagnostics, I have an index that ranks every result and gives you which is the highest, the next highest, the moderate, or the low impact on your well-being index. And when we know, okay, you might be a calm navigator and you may have less is more, you might be a level 2 jalapeno spicy pepper. Of all of your results, and maybe your sleep profile is the busy brain owl, And we're going to talk about those next week so you can kind of begin to pull this together. Because our stress profile, our complexity, it all shows up in our sleep in a specific way. And you uniquely respond to sleep in a way that makes you feel most in control, especially when things feel out of control. So, as we look at which is your highest risk category from our diagnostic suite, we then bring in the human design pieces to say, how do we personalize this? How is it most customized and strategic for you? So, when we have that calm navigator and maybe the less is more result, we would go look at the spleen. We would look at the heart or the self G centers. And through that, we would look at what gates you have and we would say, okay, let's pressure test this and find the one thing that's going to be the catalyst to bringing you back, your whole ecosystem back into alignment as quickly and strategically as possible. Michelle and I are really excited because we wanted to share something a little extra special with y'all today, because we know you may not be ready to jump into the full Megillah with the Leadership Performance Intensive yet. Maybe you're like, I can't wait till January, Carole Jean. I really need something today. Well, that's exactly what we're going to share with you. Because as we close, I want to name what many of you felt today. Perhaps it was clarity, or it was just simply a new understanding. Whether it came through understanding your stress reflex patterns or seeing your human design reflected with precision, something clicked. That click is the signal that your next level of leadership requires a different internal ecosystem. One that supports the scale of your work you're actually carrying, not someone else's. Today was just a preview of what happens when we bring stress diagnostics and human design together. This is the environment where high-achieving women finally understand why performance feels harder than it should, and what creates sustainable advancement. How many times do we say that it should not be this hard?
Yes. And I think that's what I'll add too. Like, I've taught these classes for a while now, right? Those of you that have joined my Tuesday class, I teach every Tuesday something about human design. And the feedback that we got from it, because you've been in a bunch of my classes, has been like, this is so good, but like, now I want to look at mine. Now I want to know, like, I need help knowing what mine is. And that's where some of this, like, Friday series was like, oh, sure. Let's plug that into sleep and complexity, and we'll give you your chart and these slides. But there's still that moment of like, I still need a little more help, right? And I think that's why I love sharing these classes the way we do is like, we're giving you the information of how it all connects. But what we realized through this is people were saying like, okay, but I still need a little more help. Will you help me? And I think that was kind of my aha moment was like, yes, you can have these slides, you can print your chart, you can look at the centers I just talked about and match it up, which is what I don't want to teach in these classes so that people get bored, right? But there's that moment of just saying, like, I want to go deeper because when you connect it to something like stress and complexity and even sleep, and then you looked at the human design and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize you could tell me specifically for me where that plugs in. I mean, that's just what I'm so excited about is like, I love teaching these classes and giving people the tools and the slides, but there's that level of like, I still need more help, right? So as you're talking about this, I'm like, when it resonates, it means that you're ready to go deeper, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And Michelle and I like to give options. So if you're here and options are what you want to explore and you want to go a little deeper and you're interested in what your results are and how they tie together with your human design, we're opening a limited number of mini intensives next week from December 15th through the 19th. And you can choose your focus. So if you want to dive deeper into your stress profile, we got you. If you want to know what your complexity level is, perfect. If you're interested in your sleep architecture, come play. Because each mini intensive includes your diagnostic package, your risk index, how high that particular result is impacting your well-being ecosystem, your human design insights, and something Michelle and I are really excited to offer, which is a 60-minute one-on-one session with both of us together. And if you decide to join the full Leadership Performance Intensive and you get one of these minis, you'll receive a $1,000 upgrade credit for our January cohort. Michelle, anything else you'd like to share with that? Because some people I know may not want to do this till after the holidays, and that's totally okay. We are going to book January 19th, the week of January 19th, so that people that didn't want to do it maybe right now, you want to do things after the holiday, go ahead and book your intensive for January as well. Michelle?
I mean, for me, like this is what people have been asking us for. And so I was like, well, I guess we should give them what they're asking for, right? But I also want you to feel like you can go to the website, you can download your chart, you can look at our slides today and connect the dots, and then just know we're here. If you want to go deeper, if you want more help, and I really believe, and you'll know if you attend my, because this is a leadership series. If you attend my Tuesday classes, you'll know it's all about choose your own adventure. If you are like, I'm a one line in my profile, I want to learn all the things, I want to go deep, right? If you're a one line, we give you all the tools to go into it yourself for free. Awesome. Have fun. Let us know how it goes. I'll see you on Tuesday. But if you're like, hey, I think I want to learn more, then we're giving you that option. If you're like, hey, I want something where like I'm ready, but I really need somebody to like be there and hold my hand at the time, then we have that too. So I hope that helps you feel like you got this because that's what we were missing in some of my classes where we were leaving people wanting more and not really giving a solution on how to learn more other than see you next Tuesday. So I hope that's helpful, but I'd love to open it up for questions or feedback on what resonates with people as well. Like when we talked about stuff today, what questions do you guys have that are coming up?
And I do want to address, because, Tegan brought something so beautiful up. Thank you so much, Tegan, around magnesium. And I mentioned, the physiology of stress is equally important because sometimes that's the first thing that we need to stabilize. But when we have the information from your diagnostics and we have your human design, we can more strategically look at, well, from an endocrinology standpoint, from your bioorganic chemistry standpoint, what do we need to support first? So is it rhodiola rosea? Is it your hippocampus pituitary adrenal, right? That axis. Do you need some supplement support there? What types of magnesiums? Do you need a full 7-layer complement of magnesiums? Because so many of us are burning through our magnesium in stress. And we'll talk about some of these chemical things next week when we talk about sleep. Because the reason our sleep is the first thing disrupted is because of the chemistry that begins to change as our stress levels and our different cortisol levels and other neurochemicals are changing under stress, and how we're burning through so many more of our stores, especially our iron and ferritin. And as women, how that shows up in our hormone regulation as well.
But what you're just talking about is like where to start. And that's why I love collaborating with you on the wellness, well-being piece, is because human design can tell you so many things. And, Chiron is my next class. I'm super excited about. And like when you turn 50, you get this whole other bundle of things that you get activated. And what do you do with that, right? But also there's that moment of like, where do I start? Because there's just almost too much information, right? And I think to me, that's what I love about partnering with something very specific like well-being.
And I love that that's what we do in our one-on-ones, and that's what we're doing in our performance intensive coming up in January. Is not only are we giving you the precision of what to do and specifically what is yours, we're also going to give you the how to do it next. We're going to give you that 30, 60, and 90-day plan, the step-by-step based on the highest risk in your top 3. And we're going to build that step-by-step plan with you. We're going to do that in the mini intensives for one focus area that you choose, and we're going to do that for the whole Megillah in January. So thanks so much for being here. Michelle, I know we got to wrap because you got to get to the Chiron